Today I'm going to talk about how you can get started on the property ladder. As I speak to a lot of people at networking events at all sorts of different times on their property journey, and first and foremost, a lot of the people, they struggle to get started. Now, why do they struggle to get started? Well, property investing can seem very risky, can seem very dangerous when you don't always know 100% what you're doing, or you're listening to outside sources, i.e. the press, the news. You're listening to family members, to friends that think, oh, it's a risky business, that property business. You don't want to be getting involved in that. House prices go up, house prices go down. People rent properties, they don't pay rent. All of this happens, all of that happens. And of course, yes, it does happen. But does it happen to the same people day in and day out? No. If you set yourself up in the best possible manners that you can do, and that's what we're here to help you with on this channel, then you will be making the best of any situation that is out there. Even if it's a bad situation, we can turn it around. There's never anything that cannot be solved or sorted. So why do people struggle to get a foot on the property ladder? Well, sometimes it's just having a bit of clarity as to what to do, what strategy they want to do in property. So there are lots of different ways you can get involved in property. And I like to think a lot of the different ways that you can do things and get creative with different strategies is to think of them as a toolkit. So a lot of the time it's fantastic to go out there and almost try and learn all of the different strategies, all of the different tools that you can use when you're looking at property investing. But the fundamentals are, what do you want to invest in? Are you looking at commercial units? Are you looking at residential units? Are you looking at high cash flowing units like HMOs, houses of multiple occupation? Are you looking at short-term rentals, serviced accommodation, Airbnb type properties as well? You need to get those right and get yourself a bit of clarity on that. And of course, subscribing and listening to these channels can really help you with that, because we talk about a whole mixture of different strategies that are out there. But there is no one size fits all. And that's what I do like about property and property investing, because there isn't just one thing that, one person will do and everybody follows suit, because property is a living and breathing thing. Property does depreciate if you do not look after it. If you look after it as an asset, then it will, hopefully hold its value. It might depreciate in the marketplace, but you only got to worry about that if you are going to sell the property. And of course, we always say the best thing to do with any property investing is to invest for the long term. So I've built up a property investing portfolio now. I have some properties that I own myself, so I'm building up my own portfolio. I also have some rent-to-rent properties. Now, rent-to-rent is a strategy where we manage the properties very much like a letting agent, but we treat those properties as if they're our own. We offer a guaranteed rent. We take care of minor maintenance, so we are maintaining that asset for the landlord. And we do that with HMOs, and we do that with serviced accommodation strategies. Now, why do we use those? Because they're high cash flowing, which means the landlord or the property owner can earn good money, and we can as well. Now, if you've got a pot of money yourself, or maybe you've got some inheritance, or you've come into some money from different sort of means. I mean, looking at the way you can finance property deals, a lot of people get hung up because A, they've got a pot of money and they're worried about wasting it. B, they haven't got any money, so they don't know where to start. And of course, really just start with traditional financing methods. So mortgages, if you're going to buy a rental property, you're going to have to put down probably at least 25% deposit on a mortgage. So that means you're going to get a mortgage for 75% of the costs in most cases. Now, you're also going to have to pay stamp duty on that. So there will be costs for that. You'll have legal fees. So those costs can soon mount up, and it can be very difficult for people to get that momentum investing going. A lot of the times we see it on TV all the time. People buy an old house that's run down, they spend some money on it, give it an uplift, and they hopefully then can remortgage it for more than they paid, for more than the refurb, in which case then they can pull some of their, if not all of their money back out. Now, those deals are great, but trying to get all of your deposit out of a deal can also be very, very tricky. So there are methods that you need to follow as well. So realistically, if you're going to leave any money in a deal, you want it to be a high cash flowing property month on month. So I would always say go and speak to a mortgage provider, go and speak to an independent mortgage broker. So don't really go to your high street brands, you know, your Santanders, your Halifaxes and stuff, because they'll only have a small sector of the market that they'll actually be willing to use. If you go to the independent mortgage brokers, and do feel free to reach out to us if you want some recommendations for mortgage brokers that are independent, that have more of the market at their disposal, because they'll be able to find you better deals and potentially more creative deals as well. So it works very, very well there. But go and see if you're mortgageable. Okay, that is a really, really good one. So if you're still in full-time employment and you know you've never had major problems with debt, even if you have, it's still worth going to see if you're mortgageable. So go and speak to the property professionals, the mortgage companies, see if you can actually get a mortgage, whether it's a buy-to-let mortgage or you're looking at doing any other strategies. But that is a great place to start, because it'll give you some clarity about what you can do. You may have enough for a deposit, but for whatever reason, your credit score, your credit rating could be holding you back and you don't even know it yet. Whereas, you know, it might take you a few months to find a deal. In that time, you could actually start working on your credit score, getting your credit rating up so that you can get the best rates when you're actually going to do a deal. But if you don't know about it, and I always say we've got to be the property professional in this industry. If we want to be a professional and we want to be a property investor, then we have to run it professionally. So check out your credit scores. Okay, make sure that you have decent credit. Now, if you know for a fact you haven't got decent credit, don't bury your head in the sand. Go and see how you can start to get your credit score back up whilst you're doing other things. And of course, you can use creative strategies. You can use vendor finance potentially. You can use purchase lease options, rent to rent strategies. All of those are great to be able to use. But I would say just check yourself out first before you do anything else. And of course, you can do joint ventures and other people can actually put the money in for you. Excuse me. So as you're starting out on the property ladder, we really do need to be looking at some things, because a lot of people will say that the best strategies are owning the properties, and they are 100% right. Why? Because not only do you get the cash flow month on month, but you get the capital growth as well. So when I started in property, I didn't have a massive amount of money. I needed to get the cash flow coming through. Now I've managed to get that coming through in such a manner now that it helps me buy my properties. It actually funds the deposits for buying the properties that I want to buy. So that has really, really helped me. But a lot of people, again, and I speak to a lot of new people all the time, which is why I wanted to put this together, will be saying to me, well, I want to own the asset. I want the capital growth. That is brilliant, and that is the right way to be. So I'm not looking at any real creative strategies. I just want to buy. Brilliant stuff. Have you got a deposit? No, I'm saving for a deposit. Okay, nothing wrong with that either. That is another great way to do things. Are you happy in the job that you're doing? Is that going in the right direction? Is your life feeling fulfilled? Because at the end of the day, we don't know how much time we've got on this planet. So you need to be making sure that your day-to-day is good. I was miserable in my corporate job, so I couldn't wait to get out of it. So for me, I sped things up. But there's nothing to say that you can't buy a property and have an HMO or a service accommodation or even a buy-to-let if it stacks up and that's what you want to do. And there's nothing wrong with doing maybe a bit of rent-to-rent if you wanted to as well. Now, I'm not saying you have to do that, but you can do that, or looking at potentially doing something a bit creative, a purchase option or a purchase lease option on a property where you'll arrange the price now, take the property off their hands and buy it off them in the future. Just because you've got that pot of money doesn't mean that all you can do is buy property. You can still get creative and you can try and make your pot of money go a lot further than it has. Now, if you haven't got any money, then it's good just to try and get yourself on the property ladder by then getting creative and using the strategies. But please, 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 if there's one thing you take away from watching this, listening to this or whatever, make sure you know what you are doing, okay? Don't just think, oh, that's a great idea, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do that strategy. Why? Because it just sounds really good, or it sounds easy, or it sounds like a quick way of making money, when you don't know how to do it properly. And again, there's a lot of people out there, a lot of people that I work with and help as well, because they have done this and they've got themselves into a bit of a pickle. They've got themselves into a bit of a spot. They've done a bad deal. They've got themselves locked into something that is just not good enough for them. And then they're trapped. Why? Because they didn't use the right contracts, or they didn't have the right clauses in their agreements and contracts. So do make sure that you know what you're doing. But go back to basics. If you're looking at now trying to get onto the property ladder, go out and see if you can get finance. So see if you're mortgageable. That is a good one. Even if you think you aren't, because you've had debt when you were younger or whatever, or you're just paying off some debt. Sometimes paying off debt actually puts your credit score up. Why? Because you're constantly paying this debt back. So it can be a good thing. But see if you are, financially ready. If you can get a deposit, because it's a lot easier to get a 25% deposit for a deal with maybe a joint venture loan or something like that than it is if you're trying to buy it for 100%, okay, without getting any other mortgages and things on there, okay? So just do that first. Then, of course, it's all about the different property types. So we've touched on a few there. You can go for buy to let. Interest rates have gone up. Now, people had buy-to-lets when they had 5%, 5.5% mortgages. But a lot of the times, the house prices, because that was about 15, 16 years ago, the house prices weren't as much as they are now. So now, trying to buy a property and get the ROI that you want out of it is very, very difficult. It can still work in some areas, but the rents haven't really gone up with the house prices. So stacking deals makes buy-to-let very, very difficult now. It makes actually getting finance on buy-to-let as well when they stress test the rents that are coming through, okay? So be mindful of that. That's why a lot of people have turned to short-term rentals, i.e. serviced accommodation, holiday lets if you like, and using single lets for that sort of thing, which can be done. And of course you can repurpose any single lets that you have. If your interest rates are going to be going through the roof, you can repurpose those single lets and turn them to serviced accommodation. Again, as with anything, know what you're doing. Make sure that your mortgage provider, if you have a mortgage, allows that, or you can get permission to do so, or consent to rent it in that manner. But of course, there's a lot of different options that you can do, or you can help other landlords to do by obviously taking on their properties and doing it for them. The other one is, of course, HMOs. Now, when I started with the HMOs about 4 years ago now, if you give it nice dressing, you give it a good feature wall, you give it some color and things, that was the sort of above average. But that's gone now. That, just sticking a feature wall in there and some nice dressing is probably, below average in this day and age now. You want to be looking at doing higher end co-living, as they like to call it. But if you do, sort of Google or look at co-living, that's really what you want to be putting together, because people, when they want to live in HMOs, some people, now don't get me wrong here, I have like factory workers and shop workers and things that still like, the decent living, but we try and go that extra mile now. We try and put it up to a better spec, attract a better class of tenant. The rents will be a little bit more, and I would rather have an empty room than put somebody in a room just by rushing them in because it's empty. Or, you learn that one the hard way a lot of the times. So you make sure that you got the guarantors in place, and people have a guarantor. If they don't, then you're the guarantor. So do make sure that it's not you that's liable for them. But of course, there's different types of properties for that. So you could go for existing HMOs, buy those, maybe a bit run down, add some value, remortgage those, or you can do rent to rent on those. You can do purchase options on those. You could do vendor finance on those sort of things. Really, what you're looking for is a problem. And a lot of people will go out there and look for the property, which we do look for the property because that's what we can see on your Rightmoves, your Zooplers, and any other platforms that you're using to find properties. But we really want to look for a problem, and we want to be property problem solvers. So when you're getting out there, have a clear sort of plan of what properties you're after. Now, it could be commercial as well. Maybe you want to do some commercial conversions, maybe to resi, and that's a whole different game. Again, you need to know what you're doing. Don't just think, I can borrow some money here, I can go and convert that office into a load of flats. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. That's what I say. You need to speak to the experts. You need to have a foundation, a roadmap to follow to know that you're going to do those correctly. But make sure that you've got an idea of what sector it is that you want to get into. So I'm going to get into single lets, but I want to do them in serviced accommodation because I want to get more cash flow coming through each month. So I'm going to buy properties. I'm going to speak to the mortgage brokers, if you are buying properties, about how I go about getting a serviced accommodation or short-term rental mortgage package, because they have those now. Now you will pay a bit more on those, but also the opportunities are there because the mortgage companies aren't silly for you to earn more through the properties as well. Do you know what I mean? So you should be able to get more income coming through, which should counterbalance any high payments that you, or higher payments or interest rate that you might have doing that. Of course, HMOs as well, you can look to get hold of properties to see if it's an Article 4 area and things. And start renting those out. If you own the properties, you don't necessarily need to be managing the properties yourself either. You can give them to a good letting agent in the area, or serviced accommodation. You can do the same. You can give it to like a serviced accommodation management agent as well. If you're doing creative strategies like rent to rent and things, you can still do exactly the same thing. But what I would say on that is, obviously that will eat into your profits more than if you set that up and systemize it and do it yourself, which you can do. Once you've got a few units, you can start pulling a few people in to help and work with you, virtual assistants and things like that, and you can make it very cost effective. But have that plan. So see whether you can get finance, have a plan, know what properties you want to be going for, know what problems you can solve for the property owners. That's very important. So if you can find a property owner with a problem and we can solve that problem for them, we can make it a win-win. There's no buyer's remorse or anything like that. Everyone's a winner, everybody's happy, and it works very, very well. So once you've done that, it's all about then sitting down and doing the market research. Okay, so you could say, well, Mark, blimey, that's loads of stuff to do before I've actually even sat down and gone through Rightmove and Zoopla and Property Filter and all of those great things. Yes, get it right in your head first. And this is what I'm just saying. We're going back to basics here. If you've already started, and I always say, a lot of people say to me, well, I already started. You know, the last couple of years, I've just been buying properties, not really knowing what I was doing, and probably haven't been buying them in the best way. But do you know what? I actually always say to those people, you're in a better position now than anybody who hasn't done that. Why? Because you've got into the game. You've actually took action, and that's brilliant. And of course, you can always repurpose your properties as you learn more. And I've seen, and I've helped people as well, and we have here at the Property Investor Network, people already have portfolios, think, well, I don't need to learn anymore. That's the wrong thing. What you want to look at is your own portfolio and see how you can maximize the profits out of that portfolio. So by learning a little bit more here and a little bit more there, you can actually take a portfolio that's doing okay and actually supercharge your results, even treble the results that you're currently getting, depending on what you can do with the properties that you have. So once you, as I say, got the financials there, you know what the strategy is, you can then start doing your market research. And don't try and splattergun everything. Look for the problems, look for the properties that have an issue, potentially properties that have been for sale and are now back on the market. You know, so somebody at the end of the day has thought in their head, I've sold my property now, happy days. They're already thinking about spending the money or moving to somewhere else, and then it's fallen through. We all know that that's a horrible place to be in, but they always say, you know, I think it's about 2 in 3 at the moment are falling through. It's a crazy time at the moment, but you normally have an average of 1 in 3 falls through. So there's always somebody then that maybe wasn't motivated the first time you spoke to them, but maybe are a bit more motivated now to potentially do the deal that works for you. And if you can explain the deals that you want to do with the people, you will put yourself in a really, really good position. So, you know, start checking out what's coming back on the market, start talking to the agents as well. And of course, you know, decent deals that you want to be looking at. If you are just looking on the portals, it's potential, you know, properties that have strong rental demand, so are in good areas for the tenant types or the holidaymaker types or whatever you want to repurpose the property for, potentially, that are going to give you a positive cash flow. Potentially properties that give you a bit of equity from the day that you buy it. So, you know, a lot of the times you make your money when you buy the properties, not really when you sell the property, because if you can get a good deal on something, then that's great. So it doesn't always have to be below market value. Don't get caught up in, you know, what percentage do I have to do to actually be a savvy investor? hey, sometimes market value is good enough, because with the cash flow that's coming through and the capital growth that you'll get over the long term, it's worth doing those deals. Do you know what I mean? So don't always think you have to have a below market value. Sometimes just hitting it on the button is great. But if you can get it below market value, that's great. Also look for properties that have a problem that potentially you can solve now, and then maybe a bit later on, once you have the property, you can add value. You know, maybe you can go up into the loft, into the cellar, at the back, but you can add value to it. You could take a nice buy-to-let house now, convert it into a high-level co-living HMO, and absolutely explode your profit potentials, okay? But again, if you're scared and you don't know what to do, then invest a little bit in yourself to find out what it is that you want to know, to find out how to do these things. And of course, there are loads more creative strategies where you could find a vendor, potentially if they don't need to spend the money. You could use vendor finance, where, you know, they keep the money in the deal or they loan the money back to you whilst you do what you're going to do with the property. And it can get, you know, that isn't for this. This is back down to basics at the end of the day. But I get carried away with it all. It's great. But of course, you're always looking for a good return on whatever investment that you do, but you're also looking to help people. So adding value, equity release, anything like that can be great. But it's always good to try and look for the problem, look for the motivated seller. And most people, and I'll say this again, most people, when they put their property on the market or they have a bit of a problem right in the beginning of that, aren't that motivated. They're still thinking, I can do this, I can do that. If they need to sell the property and then it's gone back on the market, and yes, it's agreed and it's gone back onto the market again, or they've taken it off the market because all of a sudden they're just fed up now and they're getting messed around, they could be motivated enough to be able to do a deal with you, okay? But making sure it's a win-win deal. Never, 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 never try and take advantage of anybody. You'll get buyer's remorse. They'll probably pull out and it will cost you some money because of the money and the time that you'll have put into it. So there's no point in doing that, okay? Always make sure it's a win-win solution, and never make assumptions as well when you're talking to people. Well, they're just going to want money, so they're never going to want to get creative. You don't know that until you start asking the right questions. So ask the right questions, listen with 2 ears to the answers, and start having a chat with people. You can ask questions, they'll give you 1 or 2, word answers. Doesn't really get you anywhere. It's more building up the know, like, and trust, wandering around the property, you're talking to them about the property. How long have you owned this property? Has it been good? Why do you want to sell it now? What are you looking at doing? Oh, you're looking at moving abroad. Oh, fantastic. Have you already bought something abroad, or are you still looking, or have you found, the perfect place? Those sort of questions will tell you. They might say, yeah, we bought the property there. They might not need the money right now from this property. They just might want the hassle removed. All of a sudden then, you can get a bit more creative, and it's just digging deeper to see what they need. It's almost like saying to them, and I don't say to them at the beginning this, but it is almost saying, if I could wave a magic wand and give you everything that you wanted with this deal, what would it be? And that can be a last resort if you're not getting anywhere with anybody, okay? So do make sure that you've got a strategy, you know what you're looking at, and you can push it forward. Then start getting out there. Start talking to agents, okay? Start going in there. Don't try and sell yourself to agents. Hey, I'm coming in and I'm buying all of these properties. Just go into agents, start talking about properties so that they feel comfortable. Again, building up the know, like, and trust. Why? Because that's their job. So they're going to be more than happy to just talk to you about what's going on in the marketplace, what these properties are all about, and take a bit of time to start doing that, okay? Get out there and do viewings, start looking at properties, and listen, nobody ever built a property business or a portfolio sat behind a desk data scraping. You've got to get out there and you've got to start shaking hands. Go to networking events, property networking events, landlord events, all of those sorts of things. Don't be afraid, obviously, to invest in yourself a bit if you need to give yourself that confidence. With knowledge comes confidence. With practice comes confidence. So the more people you speak, it could be scary. Push yourself out of your own comfort zones, push yourself out of your own way, and go out there and speak to these people, okay? Because it will really, really help you. But make sure that you know the legal aspects about what you're doing. You don't need to know the ins and outs, but you need to start to build up a bit of a power team and just take it through the stepping stones. Getting on the property ladder, I like to think of it, is every run of that ladder will get you further there. It all starts and stops with your mindset. First and foremost, that is the foundations of everything. It could be your limiting beliefs that there's no money out there, you cannot get started because something's holding you back. Don't let anything hold you back. Surround yourself with like-minded people who are already achieving what it is that you want to achieve, and then that will help you in the long run to be able to get out there and to be able to get the results that you want. So you can overcome any obstacles just by knowing the right people, and that is of course all about your community. So it's great to be a part of communities, property investor network communities, other communities. If you do any training, you'll probably, if it's good training, you'll be into communities there as well. So network with people as well. Make sure that you go on coaching calls and things and listen to what other people have to say, and continually always learn. Continually always read and better yourself, and listen to the podcast, watch the YouTube videos, connect with people, and that will start to give you some confidence, and then with that, your experience and what you're doing will grow as well. And that will then help you start to take action, get a clear plan of what it is you want to do, and talk to different people. You may be thinking to yourself, I want to do this one specific strategy. Then you hear somebody say, well, that was rubbish, I tried that, it didn't work. Now, just because it didn't work for them doesn't mean it's not going to work for you. Just means that they maybe didn't know what they were doing or didn't do it right. So speak to other people as well. Don't just take one agent's words for it when it comes to looking at areas and different tenant types and things like that. But it really is about just getting out there and start talking to people. Listen, if you've got nothing right here and now, you want to get involved in property, you've got no money, you've got no real knowledge or anything like that, go to the estate agents. Start looking in the windows, start looking at Rightmove, start thinking to yourself, right, I'd like to do HMOs, so I need to learn more about that. Start following people, start investing in yourself if you can. If you've got no money, save some money. You know what I mean? Stop wasting money on things. Start saving money so that you can start to invest in yourself and into your properties, okay? And into your portfolio to help you in the future. And of course, start going out there and speaking to agents as well. Go into the networking events, and that will really, really help you. So if you're now sat thinking, well, I've watched this, I now know what I have to do, which is potentially see whether I can get a mortgage. I've then got to, make sure that I know what I'm doing. I've then got to, see what it is that I want to do in the future. What strategy do I want to be doing? What sort of properties do I want to be involved around? What is my property business going to stand for? Start taking those actions. So start today. Reach out to some mortgage brokers. I mean, even if you have to go to your own high street bank, just do it initially. You haven't got to agree to anything. Just say, can I get a mortgage? I'm looking at a property that's potentially worth this. If I have a deposit of that, would I be able to get a mortgage? And they'll tell you yes or no. If they say no, get on Expedia or Experian or whatever it's called, and check your credit score. Just Google credit score, and go on there and start finding ways, because there's loads of those credit score things that actually start giving you like a blog of tips of things you can start doing to get your credit score in order. Start doing that sooner rather than later if you have got any problems. Don't leave that to the last minute for somebody to turn around to you and say, well, your credit score was poor then. Oh, I knew about that. And it's still poor now because you haven't done anything about it. There are lots of little things that you can do, little tricks and stuff like that. You can start getting your credit score back to where it needs to be. So don't neglect these things. Start doing these things and start moving yourself forward on your property journey. So if you are stuck, I hope this has given you a few things to get yourself going, to get you starting to step up on that ladder. Put in the comments below if that's you, and if you need any other help or guidance, then we will be able to help you and support you on your property journey. So if you need any further help with your property investing or getting out there or building a property business, maybe you've started and you're struggling a bit to get the traction that you need, then feel free to check out thepropertyunleashed.com. Feel free to email us at hello@thepropertyunleashed.com, and we may be able to help you. We have a lot of free masterclasses, tools and everything that can help get you started, get you going in the right direction. And of course, we have students that are having amazing success right here, right now. So please follow, like, subscribe, share, leave a comment, and I look forward to you joining me in the next episode very soon. Take care. Bye for now.